So the first one is analyst job. Within the analyst jobs, you'll see different titles like business analysts, systems analysts. You'll even see things like data analysts. Analysts are usually working with some sort of a business function. So let's say it could be a department within an organization. It could be customer service department. And then they want to improve their customer service experience. So they'll get a business analyst or a systems analyst to figure out how they can improve their systems. It could also be very technical. They might need a new system, or they might need to build additional functionality on how they might receive their calls or handle customer complaints. So a business analyst is going to work with that department and figure out how to make that system. System analyst is going to be very similar. A lot of times what I've seen is business analysts will focus more on the functional side of things, and they'll be a little bit more closer to the actual business. They know how things work day to day. While systems analysts might be a little bit more on the technical side, they might be looking at how the actual system that takes these calls and records these calls, and they're looking at how the system functions at the technical level. So you can have a functional to a technical spectrum, and then we can put the BA here, and then we can put the systems here. We can put the systems analyst here, and they'll be somewhere along the spectrum. You'll see all sorts of different types of categories. You'll see a technical BSA. Now they just want someone who's on the technical side, who can understand the business as well as the systems side of things. And then from this category, there's lots of different kinds of analysts, but we'll just look at data analysts as an example. Now this is kind of working in a different category. A data analyst is typically working with the business side of things. They're working with the functional side, but they also have the technical knowledge. They might be analyzing the data on what kind of data is being gathered in the system, and they are informing decisions based on the data. So they're going to need to know how to work with databases. Their analytical skills are going to be pretty good. And they'll also work with spreadsheets like Excel or Google Sheets. And they're usually extracting data from a database and maybe sometimes putting it in Excel, or sometimes putting it in and creating visualizations. And all of this is to, again, inform the business. So the business can make some sort of decisions with that. I have detailed videos on business analysts and data analysts, so check that out at the end if you're interested in this. Now the next category, let's talk about developers and software engineers. Most of the times when you're thinking about developers, immediately we're talking about programmers and coders. There are different types of developers, lots of different technologies. Basically every single technology that is out there, like Java, Python, C#, whatever the different types of languages they are, there's a developer for that. And different types of websites and systems are built on different types of languages and the architecture underneath. So you need a different type of developer who understands that technology to build that stuff. So there's going to be thousands and thousands of different types of jobs for just developer. But let's take a look at a category. A lot of times you'll see front-end developer. These are the people who are going to be making stuff you can actually see, like a website or a web application, like Facebook. You're touching it, you're interacting with it, you're playing with it, whatever, you're submitting information to it. That is the front end. And then you'll also have the back end. These are the people who are doing all the logic at the back of the system, behind the interface, what you're going to be seeing, and the logic that is implemented, that's the back end. So in the front end, you're going to see a lot of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and then you'll also have in the back end, you'll need some C#, Java, JavaScript, just depending on the different frameworks. And then you have what they call full stack. So full stack developers are going to need to know all of this stuff from up here and more. They're also going to need to know some sort of a database. So full stack developers are going to be working from end to end, developing the whole system and then putting that information into a database and extracting it and displaying it on the user forms or on a site. So you've got the people who are designing the systems, you've got the people who are developing the systems, then you're going to need someone who's going to be testing the system. There are different types of categories of testers as well. You have functional testers. Functional testers are the ones who are testing the functionality of what the site was built. If it was a web application, how is it functioning? You're seeing, is the system functioning the way it's supposed to be? Then you have integration testers as well. Integration testers are going to be making sure that the different types of systems that you've built, all the different components, make sure they're working together the way they're supposed to. They've integrated properly and they're working the way it was designed to. And then you also have performance testers. I did some of this back in the day when we had some system that we wanted to see how many users can log on concurrently, and what's the load that the system can handle, how many pages it can display, how fast can it do all of these things, what's the latency is going to be like, all this kind of performance of the system. A performance tester is looking at all of that. So the types of information you're going to need to know, a lot of times you need to know some scripting because you need to automate some of your tests. You also need to understand some hardware and software specifics like the processors. You also need to understand storage. So you'll need to understand how some of these technical components work together. And what about like load balancing? How does a server handle the load that it comes to and how does it divide it up? So you'll need to understand some of the basics around that. Now we're getting into more of the admin role. So in the administrators, you're going to have lots of different kinds of administrators depending on the system. You'll have system administrators. The primary job of administrators is to make sure the system is up to date, it's running the way it's supposed to. So they're going to be doing things like system patches, updates, making sure things don't cause it to crash. They'll be taking a look at which applications are running on there and how are they performing. Then you also have DBAs, which are database administrators. Database administrators are looking at databases and making sure the performance at the database level is working the way it's supposed to. When a new table is created, does it have indexes? And what that basically means is like, is it optimized? Can it handle all the load that is being requested from the tables within the databases? So for DBAs, you definitely need to understand the ins and outs of databases, how they work, how they join to each other, what are the different relationships, what are the different relationships within the tables, and what are the cardinality between things. So DBA needs to understand how all of that stuff works, and also what kind of hardware is required to run some of these databases. So when someone is designing a new system, they're gonna need to talk to a DBA and figure out, hey, we're planning on making the system. Can our current database handle this? If not, what hardware do we need to acquire to put this database on there so we can make our system work on there without any issues? So all of these people are talking to each other, they're sharing information, they're working on building a system together. And you can think about any type of servers or any infrastructure networks, any of these things is going to have some sort of an administrator for them. So just like that, you'll have network administrators too. They're going to make sure the systems are secured and the traffic that is supposed to come in is coming in, and what is going out is only what is allowed by the company. And also, you don't want to be getting hacked. So these security and network engineers are going to be working together. Speaking of engineers, let's look at some of these engineer categories. Within the engineer categories, we'll have, again, network engineers who are focused on building the actual network out. Could be physical, depending on the type of architecture that a company has. It could be all virtual networks or it could be physical networks as well. They're dealing with systems and routers and the network traffic. You also have infrastructure engineers that are making sure that all of your hardware is in place and is up and running properly, and the job site is functioning, the data centers are up and running the way they're supposed to be. So all of these different people work together to build a system. You can probably guess that some of these jobs, like the infrastructure engineers and network engineers, actually need to be on site to lay down the cables and put the servers together. So clearly they have to be physically on the job site to make sure this work gets done. And if that's their primary job, then that job cannot be remote. But a lot of companies now work in the cloud, so they need a virtual infrastructure and not a physical infrastructure. They're renting the infrastructure through the cloud like Google, Amazon, Azure. So they don't need a network engineer or infrastructure engineer on site. For these types of jobs, you'll need some sort of a certification. The types of degrees you'll need for these is something like a business degree. You'll need computer information systems, also computer science. You can pick different concentrations like cybersecurity. Basically, a lot of these technical majors and some job experience is going to be required for a lot of these types of jobs. Let me know in the comments below what questions you have. I'll leave some links in the description for you to check out some of the videos I've made on some of these jobs. There you go, friends. I hope this video was helpful. If you liked it, give it a like. And if you want to see more videos like this, consider subscribing and check this video out next. And hey, keep on being awesome.